We saw with the previous Conservative government that when we increased penalties, it had an effect on crime rates. Crime rates went down when criminals knew they were going to spend serious time in prison. And so that had an effect on the prison population in a good way because criminals stopped committing crime. And that's what today's announcement is all about. You know, when dangerous, we have had two things in this country for generations. We have had the presumption of innocence, but also courts that take into account when you've got dangerous, violent, repeat offenders, people who have long rap sheets of serious convictions, that public safety has to be taken into account. And we've had that ability for judges to keep those offenders behind bars awaiting trial taken away by Liberal laws that brought in that principle of restraint and forced judges to consider the rights of criminals ahead of the rights of honest Canadians. And Mark Carney has chosen to keep that in place. So the biggest takeaway from today's message is that while the rhetoric has changed, while the government is running ads, claiming, using your tax dollars to run ads, telling you that they've solved the problem, they have kept on the books the very Liberal laws that caused the problem in the first place. Right. Thanks very much. Maybe one more question, then I know we have a few other things to get to.
A question from Toronto, if you don't mind. Central Bank says the economic growth has resumed. Do you accept that the technical recession is behind us in Canada?
Well, look, you know, we know that since Mark Carney has been Prime Minister, he has delivered the only G20 country that's in a recession. We know that net job losses are higher under his tenure. Mark Carney's government just told the United Arab Emirates that they had to park $70 billion worth of investments because there is nothing for them to invest in. Okay. I can't even believe those words are coming out of my mouth. We live in a resource-rich province where we want to see projects approved. Mark Carney has chosen to keep Bill C-69, the No New Pipelines laws, on the books. He's imposing a massive hike in the industrial carbon tax. And his major projects office hasn't actually done a single thing. There's not one single project that has started and finished the process for the major projects office. Meanwhile, our competitors around the world are getting to yes. We've seen countries that were net importers of energy become net exporters because they figured out a way to get government out of the way to get things built. So again, this is the illusion that Mark Carney is delivering something different than than what the Liberal government has delivered for the last 11 years is just that. It's just an illusion.
Do you have any concerns that recent public some party members is a distraction right now?
I can just tell you that we're all focused on holding this government to account, and you know, Pierre continues to point out how prices are still going up, crime is still going up. Jobs are continuing leaving. The manufacturing jobs in the latest jobs report, just devastating for hardworking men and women across the country in the manufacturing sector. So that's what we're focused on, and we continue to see Canadians responding to that message, and we're going to continue to stay focused on that. I think you had a question, gentlemen, and then we will have to wrap it up.
The shooter that you claim would be in jail and not out on bail if your jail not bail bill was enacted, that's the shooter for the nightclub shooting.
A rebel.
The Salsa Festival, correct? And can you confirm where that shooting took place, and the nightclub and the location?
Yeah, so that one took place at the Rebel nightclub, outside the nightclub, and that person then took a car, he stole a ride share and tried running people over. So it's a different shooting than the one on Salsa.
So he tried to run people over, he didn't shoot anyone?
He did shoot, yeah. Yeah. And the crazy part is he has a history of smuggling guns, of extortion, of home invasions, yet he was guilty of that, yet was still out on bail awaiting sentencing.
The claims that crime is rising, that people are scared. I'm not disputing that may be the case, but do you guys have a source, if you have statistics for the actual rising crime?
Look, Stats Canada is a great source. I think it's the government's own source. So I encourage all members to take a look at that. 116% increase in violent crime in Canada since this government has taken office. 330% increase in extortion. We never had this kind of crime in our country. Brazen shootings. These criminals are being emboldened by the Liberal policies because they know there are no consequences. It's jail by day, bail by night, and it's the same people over and over again. A crazy stat for you. In Kelowna, the same 15 criminals were responsible for 1,400 crimes in a single year. The same 15. You put them behind bars for being repeat violent offenders, that crime stat goes down, and that's what our focus is going to be on.
There's no doubt that it was federal legislation that put in that principle of restraint. That was a liberal law that told judges that the first consideration before community safety, before victims' rights, had to be the rights of the criminal. So that was federal legislation that did that. Mark Carney has refused to repeal that. He is keeping that provision in place. This weekend, as Larry pointed out, a new piece of legislation that Mark Carney brought in effectively eliminates all mandatory minimums for all but I think 2 or 3 crimes. So he has now given judicial discretion on a whole swath of mandatory minimums. Well, you don't have a mandatory minimum if a judge is allowed to not impose that sentence. I mean, it's contradictory. It's an oxymoron. So those are 2 pieces of federal legislation that Mark Carney has brought in that is making this situation worse. And again, this is an illusion. Mark Carney would love you to believe that he's doing something different. They're actually using your tax dollars to run ads telling Canadians that they're addressing these problems. But when you actually read the legislation, it's keeping in place the very same liberal laws that caused the problem in the first place.